The waiver wire at the wide receiver position has been like chasing one meme stock after another, as we've been seeing a lot of wide receivers with tons of potential, with tons of upside through air yards and target share, just go up and down and bounce around throughout the season. But if they were consistent, they'd be rostered, so that kind of makes sense. But the pool of players has been vast. But we got a new hitter that's stepping into the room. Marquez Valdes-Scantling did well last week. Everybody's looking at him. He's one of the top trending waiver wire claims on Sleeper. Everybody's got questions. They're wondering about the workload. They're wondering if they should chase this meme stock right here. So we got to do the deep dive right now with the You Need series to see whether or not you need him for your fantasy football team. This other guy might need him, you may not, so you're going to have to watch the full video to see the details. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because we're doing these deep dives on as many trending players as possible throughout the week. Every week, it ramps up through the back end of the week as well. On top of that, we go deep on the waiver wire, and we use these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button, stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. Do not disappoint Ric Flair. We are looking at Chris Olave. He's going to be out for some time, it looks like, on injured reserve with a concussion. Could be back this season. We shall see. But the Saints are dealing with a lot of injuries. We'll talk about that later in the video. But they're getting wrecked at both the running back and wide receiver position right now, and they had to make some moves. They signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling on October 22nd. First game was against the Carolina Panthers. Saw a 41% snap rate in that matchup and a target. Last week, he got a little bit more work and saw a 55% snap share and 3 targets, but went ham for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was deep ball city with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He looked good. He made his mark. Everybody's looking at this and they're like, hey, should I be chasing this for my fantasy football team? But we're going to connect the dots here today. Just looking at what he's done over the last few years since 2021 has not been too productive, averaging 5.8 PPR fantasy points per game, but he can give you those spike weeks. We were able to get some spike weeks with the Chiefs. We were able to get some spike weeks with the Packers when we were with the Packers. We were able to get some upside games throughout our career. And that is the story of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because when you look at his career, not really too productive. Best season 2022 with the Chiefs, 687 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, in 2018 as a rookie, 581 yards and 2 touchdowns, 452 2019, 690 in 2020. We bottomed out a little bit due to some injuries and some transitions. And now, over the course of time, we run through the Bills. Now we're with the Saints. And now we're trying to make our mark again here in the NFL. Looking at his air yards since 2022, you can definitely see a trend here. Definitely see him getting deep balls. Definitely see him not collecting a ton of volume, but a guy that's stretching it down the field, getting a couple deep balls here and there a game, racking up those air yards, which is great for fantasy football and is also a propeller for boom weeks. And then when you look at him coming out of college with that 4.37 40-yard dash, 5th round pick, you can kind of see why. This is a wide receiver at 6'4". You have stretching the field, can be a mismatch nightmare with the length, with the speed, and teams want to use that as a jigsaw piece in their offense. Going to last week, we ran 18 routes, a 66.7% route participation rate. This is our second game with the team. That's looking solid. That's looking solid for your second game with the team. 3 targets. We honed those in. We went off. We're probably going to earn that or a little bit more next week when it comes to the route participation rate. And again, like I always say, you can't earn a target unless you run a route. And you can't catch a ball unless you earn a target. So therefore, running routes and your route participation rate is very important when it comes to fantasy production and projecting output for the future. Had 86 air yards in this game and a 28.7 average depth of target. That ADOT is not going to be able to project out for the future. However, we can see him get an 8 out of like 15 or something in the long term. That could potentially happen, especially with a decent target share. If we can rack up a target share of like 14, 15%, get a good 8 out of 12 or more, 15 or more, and run a fair amount of routes, we connect on some of these deep balls that are coming our way, we could have some splash games. And looking at this offense, it's in flux right now due to the injuries. Cedric Wilson might be back sooner than later. Chris Olave out. Rashid Shaheed out. Bub Means out. Mason Tipton's back there. Equanimous Brown is off and on off the practice squad. The competition isn't very steep in this offense. They really need MVS to step it up and get some opportunities in this offense to really help push the pace downfield, stretch things out, especially for Alvin Kamara, so the boxes aren't stacked completely against him. And you're looking at Derek Carr here, 5th in the league when it comes to deep ball rate at 14.1%. He loves spraying it deep downfield. That is what Derek Carr likes to do. Last year, he was like top 10 when it came to deep ball rate. And then you see that with the ADOTs of all these wide receivers. Chris Olave, 10.3. Rashid Shaheed, 17.6. Mason Tipton, 12.9. Bub Means, 12.1. Of course, we had the other quarterbacks sprinkled in there. But this is just what this team wants to do. They want to get vertical. They want to get downfield. And Rashid Shaheed's 8 out of 17.6 compared to the skill set of MVS and his ADOT currently of 22.5 is very comparable to what this team wants to do. So I would not be surprised if we get a poor man's Will Fuller. If we get trash Will Fuller out here and we get some spike weeks and down weeks, that's probably what you're going to get. Some fantasy managers don't want that. And some fantasy managers love that because there is a strategy behind a trash Will Fuller or a Will Fuller in general. And that's just putting that wide receiver into your lineup and just praying to the fantasy gods you hit that boom week, that wide receiver connects on the deep ball. And there's no start-sit questions with that because it's not really projectable unless there's an over-under that's really high that you can kind of make a prediction for. But honestly, you can get overshot on those deep balls. You can be contested. Those are harder plays to bring in. Those are harder catches to convert. But again, when you splash on a few deep balls in a game, kind of like what MVS did on Sunday, you can make some magic happen. And that's what we're looking at with MVS. Trash Will Fuller with some upside. So do you want that for your fantasy team? You don't like the volume right now. You want to see more. However, he's a waiver wire player right now. Somebody's going to pick him up in your league. More than likely, they're going to chase that upside. There's nobody else there to siphon targets. So somebody's going to want to dance with that in your league. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be not? But you also want to chase that upside. It really depends on how you play the game. I like him as a cheaper DFS option. I like them more going into this week as a cheaper DFS option. It's really how you like to play the game. Honestly, if you want to gamble with those deep threat wide receivers who only get a few targets here and there, maybe 3 to 5 targets a game, and you just hope and pray they bring those targets in. Also, we could end up being used more in the passing game, getting more routes going forward. That is in the realm of probabilities, and I'm talking in probabilities, not takes, because I want you just to think through what you want to do. That's why I said to watch the full video, so you can think through what you wanted to do with this player, because I look at this player as an upside play with plenty of downside baked in. Kind of like Rashid Shaheed last year. That's probably what you're going to get. Rashid Shaheed more last year, where he was vastly volatile. Like, if you had MVS on this team for a full season, you'd probably get 5 wide receiver 1 weeks. And in a bunch of games where you want to pound your head against the wall. However, some people like that. Some people hate that, and I've said that about a bunch of wide receivers, but the NFL's trending that way with a lot of wide receivers in the National Football League. We're getting more and more of those players. We talked about them last year, and I have to bring up another one, a new wide receiver with this profile just about every week and strategize with pretty much the same strategy. So you're looking at higher over-unders, you're looking at this wide receiver that's like this or comparable and see whether or not you want to put them in your lineup. Usually, it's when you want to gamble. You're looking at waiver wire wide receivers who are projected to score 10, 9, 12 fantasy points. And you're like, that's good enough. That might be good enough if things are close, and that might get me by. Or you're looking at him, and you're looking at those wide receivers that has a good floor of about 10 fantasy points to 12 or something like that. And you're like, that's not good enough for this week. I'm going up against the best team in my league. I got to go yellow with it. And I put in a player like this. This part is what will make or break your decision. Do you need to drop a player like this in your lineup that has immense upside and a very low floor to chase that to win your matchup? Or can you get by with a Demario Douglas who's going to get about a 20% target share, possibly more, rack up targets, a very low ADOT, not many yards after the catch, but will be steady for that week and you know what you're going to get. That's what you're chasing with players like this. Some of you love that. Some of you guys hate it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.